Welcome. This DDI CADcast will cover SOLIDWORKS Electrical. Getting started. I'm Michael Nolte. In today's CADcast, we're actually going to just be going over getting started in SOLIDWORKS Electrical, doing a single line and a real quick multi-line schematic here. Alright, so let's go and switch over to SOLIDWORKS Electrical and let's go and start taking a look around. Alright, so this is the SOLIDWORKS Electrical program. We'll start out by working off of the File tab, and we'll go into the Project Manager. Project Manager is essentially where all your recent projects that you're working on, or the entire collection of your projects. Let's go and add a new project. I'm going to start out with an ANSI, but you do have other standards that you can pull from, or templates that you can pull from, and you can also create your own. But we're going to go with an ANSI to get started with. I'll go and hit OK. I'll go and set my language to English, and here's where I actually start collecting my information of my particular project. So I'm going to call it a getting started. We'll go and put in a customer name of DDI, and let's see, I do want to go and change the description to being this is the getting started document there. Alright, so we'll go and hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's actually creating all the necessary files for our SOLIDWORKS project that we're going to be working on. So once a project is open, it shows up on the Documents tab, and we can expand out the document book. And then we also have a Components list. Components lists the locations and all of our parts. But let's go and get started with the Documents tab. We have a cover page that brings in the title of the document. There is a drawings list, but let's go and open up our single line document. And this is where we're going to get started here. So single line is a great way of collecting all your information or your napkin sketch. You'll see that it brings in the location and also the title of the document. But let's go and switch to the line diagram tab here, and we're going to go and insert a symbol. And this being a single line, we're just doing kind of rough placeholders. So if you have an object that you're wanting to put in, you don't have to match it exactly. We've got lots of different classifications. I'm going to start out with a simple button here. So I'm going to go and grab a normally open push button, go and double click on it, and I'm just going to put this off to the left here. And again, we're just kind of grouping or categorizing all of our parts. So we've got a push button to automatically assign the component number as S1, and it's also going into the location one. So I can also change that as well. If you want to, you can put in descriptions. This is purely optional. And another optional item is adding manufacturer and circuit information. We can either search for existing ones or we can manually add it. So let's go and search for an existing manufacturer. So right away we can pull from different libraries or filter by different libraries. We can filter by different manufacturers. So I could pick out a specific manufacturer if I was looking for within this class. Or I could switch the class to a different category if I wanted to as well. We'll go and stay with the push buttons here. And what we'll do is we'll go and kind of start filtering down. So I only need one circuit. And I can look at terminals if I wanted to look at the number of terminals on an item. We can do lots of other filterings here. The voltage, or approved voltage for the device. So we'll go and pick out a 12 volt here. And this filters the list down to only show us the current manufacturer list of 12 volt switches in there. Not to say that you could use something different, but this was what I was narrowing my category down. So it's a normally open push button with terminals 13 and 14. So I'm going to go and add one of those in there, so it brings it down to the bottom here. I'll go and select, and I'll go and hit OK here. And what this does is it gives us the part number information of that manufacturer. So already we're collecting all the information pertaining to our components or all of our parts. So we can go up to the Insert Symbols button here again, or I do have a Symbols Manager tab that I can go to. And And this makes it really easy to go through and actually search for items that I'm wanting to put in here. So I'm just going to look for a relay. I'm just going to find an icon that looks good, or a symbol that looks good for what I want to use it for. So I'm going to just drop that in there. Assigns its component number there. We'll go and search for a manufacturer. And again, this particular one, we have 3166 or 3,166 different ones until we start narrowing it down. So we can actually go through and fine-tune the filter there a little bit. Or we can also scroll through the different companies. Looks like there's a fair amount of Siemens and also Schneider Electric. I want to only look at Schneider Electric, so I'll go and filter just by them. And I'll go and select one of them out here. So I'm just going to go with this third one in the list there. Looks like it's got enough contact points for what I'm looking for. I'll go and add that into my list of components here. And again, I can manually change the component property if I needed to, or just go with the accepted default one. Alright, so we're just building a little simple little light indicator that we're actually going to be turning the button on once a light and a sensor goes on. But realize that certain things aren't going to be under the same categories that you might be used to. For example, a light's going to be under indicator. Also, these quick search categories can be used as well. But let's go and grab a micro switch in here. I'm just going to use this as my float sensor for something. Again, automatically assigns the component number, but if I accept it out and I want to come back in, I do a right click and go symbol properties, and that gets me right back where I was originally. And I can go and search, or I can do a manually add. So if I manually add, I get this extra window that I go through and I'll type in my manufacturer information. So I can add the manufacturer stuff on the fly as I start needing them. So part number, manufacturer, we'll go and get this stuff in. And I'll go and add in the circuits. So I need to actually determine what type of circuits I'm working with here. So this is going to be a normally open. And I'll go and set my terminal numbers here. So I'm going to do a 1, 2. So one of the terminals is going to be 1, the other one's going to be a 2. Do I want it to add it only for this project or this component or the entire library? So I'm just going to do it for this individual component. Okay, so we've got our switch, our micro switch, our relay. So let's go and get one of our indicator lights in here. So again, some of this stuff actually only shows up in certain categories. So if I was looking for something like a signal or an indicator light, it's not going to be under lights, it's going to be under indicators. I could pick from one of 2 colors that are in the library, or I could also create my own. But we're just going to go ahead and drop in one of the default ones in there. Gives us an H1, and I'll go and go over to the manufacturer and circuits tab, and let's go and pick out a manufacturer that I actually want to go through and use. So I could sort by, okay, how much power that one's going to use, what the voltage of it's going to be. I'm going to pick out a 12 volt because I'm just doing something real simple here. And I'm just going to go and select a pilot light 12 millimeter here. Green that happens to match what my symbol is, but it wouldn't have to. Select it, hit OK, and then you'll see that the manufacturer information is in there. So at this point, I actually want to start connecting these together. So I'm going to go grab my drawing line there. I actually want to go through and connect these components together. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape one more time here. So again, the line diagram tab, and I'll go and grab the draw cable. One of the things I wanted to back up and show is we actually can switch to a different cable style or line style, or we can actually go through and add our own. So just by hitting the manage button, it gets me into this extra little wire dialog, and I can go and add another one in there, give it a different name, go and change the color if I wanted to. We don't need an additional one, so I'll go and select this one and delete it. Alright, so I'll go and close out of the wire manager or wire style. I'm going to stay with the stock red continuous there. So I'm just kind of roughing out how all these items are going to be connecting together. And again, this is just to kind of give you a rough idea of how things are going to be pieced together. Line by line. And I'll go and do one more wire going from my relay over to my indicator light. Alright, so I can do the right clicks also to end the line as well. SOLIDWORKS Electricals knows enough that if I move one of the components, it's actually going to move the attached wires with it as well. Alright, so let's go and switch over to our multi-line. Multi-line allows us to actually go through and get the specific information in there. Oh, you might have noticed that the preview isn't showing up. Well, I can either save the document, or SOLIDWORKS Electrical also automatically stores all the information. So if I close out of the single line and then come back to the single line, you'll see that the preview updates. So you don't necessarily need to actually save the document. It automatically saves for you. Double click on it and you'll be able to see the full drawing there again. So we'll leave that open for the time being here. Alright, so let's go and start out with the multi-line. Right now it's defaulting to be called the power document there. As far as getting around in the environment, middle mouse button allows us to pan by pushing down on my wheel. If I scroll with my wheel, it'll actually allow me to zoom in and out. So middle button allows you to pan, scrolling allows you to zoom. So I'm going to right click over the drawing here, go to properties. This is where I would go through and change my name of the document, or I could also change the locations as well. So I'm going to go and call this a multi-line document or drawing. So multi-line, you'll see that it updated the title block there. So this is actually where we do the point-to-point connection stuff. Different tab shows up when we're on this type of document. It's the schematic tab. And there's a couple of powerful tools or functionality within the line styles of SOLIDWORKS Electrical. If I draw in a single line, I can do a right click to end it, or I can do the green check mark. It leaves me in the same dialog if I do the green check mark. I'm going to go and draw another wire connecting up to it. Because I have a grid on, everything lines up real nice. I'm going to draw another wire here. Draw this one off to the side. Left click to drop a point, right click to end the line, right click again to get all the way out. So the other part of electrical is you don't need to keep track of all your lines. So if I drag one line over the top of it, it'll actually turn it into a single line. So I don't need to keep trim anything or keep track of all that. If I disconnect an intersecting line, it'll heal it back into a single wire. This is what they call smart objects, so it allows the lines themselves to be intelligent enough to anticipate what you're doing with it, so you don't have to keep track of all that stuff. Oh, and I mentioned the grid earlier that shows up in the lower right hand corner. There is an ortho, so it only goes vertical or horizontal if you want to control that as well. If I right click over one of these buttons down there, any one of them, then I can get into my grid and snap settings there. Alright, so I'm going to go and erase these lines that I have in there already. And I'm going to go back to my single line. And let's go and change our wire type for the multi-line there. You can see that there's a default listing of line types that are in there. Or we could go one step further and hit the Manage button, or Manager button. And we get this dialog where we can go through and actually create our own. So I want a 12 volt DC. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go and add. And notice that it added the F32 down there at the bottom. I'm going to right click over it and go Properties. And the properties dialog allows us to change the name and also change the color. So let's go and start out with the color change here. So I'm going to pick out, let's go and go with maybe a bright green. You know what, let's go and pick out a different color here. So I'm going to go with maybe a reddish orange. Okay, and that'll be my line color. And I'll go and change my name. I'm going to do the little tilde, so that's the shift key and the button next to the 1 there on the keyboard. I'm going to go 12 volts. And I'll go ahead and let it stay as a control wire there. Okay. So with that new one created, I could move it up or down if I wanted to, and that's in the right click as far as the sorting order goes. Okay. Alright, so let's go and go with the 12 volt. Notice it adds it to the list. I'll go and select that one. And I'm going to start drawing. So I'm just going to kind of rough out what I'm looking for initially, and we'll make some changes as we go through. So I'm just kind of come over here a little bit, go down, and again the grid makes it real easy, nice convenient way of getting the lines drawn in. Alright, so we need to start bringing in some of our symbols. So I'll go and click on the Insert Symbols button. But this has changed because we're on the schematic drawing or the multi-line drawing. If I hit Other, you'll actually see that we get a whole different category or a whole different list. And lots of different places for things to reside in. So if I go into Contacts, you'll see that I've got different contacts. And this will be for ANSI and also for IEC and some of the other standards. So I've got a single pole switch listed under switches there if I wanted to go with that style. You do also have the ability of doing a report mode, so you can actually see the descriptions a little bit easier. You can also change the categories that are listed. So for example, in this particular folder, almost all of them are IEC. Alright, so, and then we also have subcategories. So if I wanted to go to one of the sub-items, disconnectors or the like, I could filter it even further just by going to one of the off-the-shelf classifications. And this is based off of IEC, how they do the classifications. Alright, so let's see. Let's go and start with buttons. Yeah, let's go and I guess I could do the button as a regular style switch here. So I'm going to do a normally open push button, and I'll go and drop that onto my wire. When I drop a symbol in, it gives it a new component number, thinking that it's a new one that you need for the project. But if I want to associate to an existing one, I just pick it out of the list, and it'll take on the same manufacturer and circuit information. So I don't have to go through and pick that stuff out again. I just select it out of the list there. Let's go and zoom in here. I'm going to hit the escape to turn off the inserting of another, but you'll see that we have all the information pertaining to that particular switch. If I drag it off the line, notice how the line actually heals itself back into a single stretch. If I put it back in, it trims it back up there again for me. So real intelligence is built into the lines there. Alright, so let's go and use the Symbols Manager to go looking for some of our other items. So I'm going to go and look for a sensor, being my float switch or something that I might be wanting to use. So I could do a straight liquid level, or if I wanted to go with one of the other styles here. So I've got a normally open, normally closed, NC sensor. I'm going to go with a normally open sensor there. So go and just drag that in. And I'm just going to place that down to the bottom, and I'll go and say it's the same as my B1 there. Okay. Alright, and let's see what else we need. We need a relay, so let's go and do that. And keep in mind, relays are actually two different circuits that make up a relay. Relays are the coil, and then the contacts that actually close or close by the coil. So I'm going to start out with the coil here. of my relay. And again, I've got different styles of it if I wanted to go with a different style. You'll see the one in the middle there was one that I had created, so you can actually do ones that you create yourself. Let's see, so this is going to be the same as K1, so I'll go and pick that one from the list. Again, it's getting our information associated back to all of the stuff that we did on our single line. And you don't have to do a single line, you can actually just jump straight into the multi-line, or you could just stop with a single line. Entirely up to you. Alright, so I do want to grab the contact associated to that relay there. So I'm going to double click on that. And that's going to be also K1. Okay. So you can actually associate numerous things to K1. So you can have the coil, the single contact, you can have multiple contacts, all depending on what you're going to be using or drawing for that particular device. Again, remember my lamp is actually called an indicator. I'm going to come over and drop that off to the side. And let's see, this is going to be the same as my H1 here. So I'm going to pick that one from the list. And go and hit OK there. Okay. And let's see, the only other thing that I can think of is I do want to bring in a ground, this being a 12 volt circuit, so rather than drawing lines going back to the original, I'm going to go and pick one of these ground symbols here, make use of it for connecting everything back to the negative side of the battery there. So it's just going to take on a J1. I'm not even going to bother with the manufacturer there. Alright, let's see. So I'm going to move the connection for this coil off to the side here. And in fact, let's go and put the coil up here and off to the side here. And let's drop the contact point on off to the side. And let's see, I'm just kind of roughing this out, making it up on the fly as we go here. I'm going to do another down leg here for the ground. Take that and drag that over. Okay. And let's see our indicator light. Let's go and put that up next to our contact. Okay. And if I start dragging a symbol and then press Control after I start the drag, I can actually make copies of it. Notice that it picked up the next J2 there. Alright, so the coil is actually going to be on the bottom line here. I'm going to put our sensor also on our connections there. And let's see, what else do I need? I need another line going through these guys. And as soon as you put the line through and you end the line command, it'll trim everything up for you, so you don't have to do that separately. So K1 here is actually the contacts and the coil. The coil actually shows you which connection points are attached. So we actually have a 13 and 14 connection point, and that's showing up on our symbol there. Alright, so, and you know what, let's go and do let's go and look for a battery actually. I was going to draw one in, but I'm just going to go and grab one from the predefined list there. I'll go and put it down here. And again, based off the classification, if I want to add in a manufacturer, it'll have some existing ones in there. This will probably be the case where you need to pick one out of the list or go and add one manually. So I'm just going to go with a Legrand one here off the shelf. Okay. So I've got my battery in there. If I did want to change anything, I can just right click and go symbol properties, and again I could select it and I could delete that manufacturer, and I can go back and put in my own one. So I didn't know if that Legrand was a 12 volt, so I'm just going to go and create my own here. No, we're not the manufacturer of batteries, but I'm going to put us down as the battery manufacturer. And just for the heck of it, I'll go and put in a input voltage of 12 volts there, just so it's got that listed. Okay. And I'll go and hit OK there. I'm going to do it only for this component opposed to the entire catalog. Okay. Alright, so let's go and start finishing off our connections here. I'm going to drag this wire down until it goes down to my battery. Okay. And let's go and make a copy of the ground over here. So if I just start dragging it, I want to get a line in here first before I start dragging it. Alright, so I'm going to drag my component symbol over. If I press Control down first and then start dragging, or if I forget to hold Control, it's actually going to move it. So I have to start dragging and then press the Control button. And then it'll make me a copy. So that comes in as J3 there. Alright, so the only other thing I want to do is change some of the line colors for the ground side of my circuit that I've just drawn. So I'm going to go and start with one of the ones over here by the battery. I'll right click over it and I'll go replace. I'm just going to do the selected item. And let's see, I can pick out either command or, well, let's see. For now, I'm just going to grab the neutral wire off of this 3-phase. I probably should go through and create a 12-volt ground wire, or just stick with the stock one there. Okay, so that changed it to a blue, and it's my neutral there. I'm going to go and pick one of the other lines, but this time I'm going to do propagation to equal potential, and that's anything between symbols is equal potential. So if I make the change now, so I've got my neutral there, it'll actually change any line segments that are between schematic symbols. I'll go and do the same thing here again for the other one. That way I don't have to go through and pick a bunch of individual lines. I can change them all in one shot there. Alright, so I'm going to go and close out. And then there we have our completed circuit there. And again, we can go through and we can make changes whenever we want. If we have documents that we don't need, I can go and right click over them and I can delete them. If I did want to go through and add a document in, I just right click and I can do new. Schematics are going to be our multi-line, or schema is going to be our multi-line. Wire diagrams is going to be our single line. So each one of these have different functionality depending on which one you add in. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to go and close out of these sheets here. And I'm going to go and right click over my project, close it, because I'm done with it. If I want to come back and open it back up, I go to my Project Manager tab, find my project, double click on it, and here we have our document book. I'll go and expand this out. I've got my line drawing, or my single line that I drew in, and I also got my multi-line, so I'll go and double click on that, and then we've got our electrical schematic. Alright, so that's actually the getting started for SOLIDWORKS Electrical. So I'm going to go and close out on my project here, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today for the DDI CAD cast. Please visit us at ddicad.com.